Mark stood at the entrance of the Verilian government building, staring up at its smooth, curved towers that shimmered like glass. It was his first day as the human ambassador to the planet Virilia, a proud new member of the Galactic Unity Council. The gravity felt lighter here, and the sky had a strange green tint. Everything was new. Everything was different. Still, Mark felt ready. He had trained for months to learn about Verilian customs. He had read thick cultural files, practiced their greeting nod, and even tried their spicy root drinks during his trip over. But no one warned him about doors. A tall Verilian figure walked beside him as they approached the building's entrance. Her name was Tira, a commander in the Planetary Defense Forces and one of the most respected leaders in the Verilian Council. She had smooth, silver-blue skin and long robes marked with silver lines of her rank. Her sharp eyes scanned the hallway. Ahead without emotion, Mark tried to be polite, just like he was taught growing up. As they reached the large doorway, he smiled and reached forward. He pulled the door open wide, stepped aside, and said warmly, "After you." Tira stopped, not slowly, not gently. She froze like a statue, halfway through a step, her hand pulled back as if the door had shocked her. Her eyes widened, and her shoulders stiffened. The hallway around them became silent. Other Verilians passing by stopped and stared. A whisper moved through the air like wind in tall grass. Mark blinked. Is something wrong? Tira didn't speak. She just looked at him. Her face wasn't angry, but it wasn't calm either. It was the face of someone trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. A moment later, she stepped back, turned away, and walked quickly down another hallway without a word. Mark stood alone, holding the open door, his heart thumping. He had no idea what had just happened. Back in his office, Mark paced the floor. His assistant, Noma, a small floating AI drone shaped like a glowing cube, hovered nearby. "You seem concerned," it said in a calm, digital voice. "I think I just insulted a commander by opening a door for her," Mark said, confused. "I don't get it. I was just being polite." Noma blinked once. "Would you like me to check cultural interpretations of door gestures on Virilia?" "Yes," Mark said quickly. "Please." After a short pause, Noma gave its answer. According to Verilian custom, stepping aside and opening a door is a sign of submission. It is something only a lesser rank would do for a higher one, but not the way humans mean it. On Virilia, it is viewed as a quiet surrender of power. Mark sat down slowly. "So, she thought I was giving up." "Not just that," Noma said. Commander Tira likely saw it as either a challenge to her authority, or if misunderstood a political gesture. "Great," Mark sighed. "My first day here, and I may have accidentally told a top commander I'm her servant or worse. Declared something without knowing it." Noma floated silently. Mark leaned back in his seat and rubbed his face. This is going to be a long assignment. Later that evening, Mark attended a small gathering at the Unity Hall. It was meant to be informal, a friendly welcome to new envoys. Bright lanterns floated in the air, and round tables held trays of glowing fruit, and soft music buzzed in the background. Mark tried to stay calm, but he could feel the eyes on him. Some Verilians nodded as he passed, others whispered behind folded hands. The humans in the room seemed unaware. He spotted Tira across the room. She was standing near a round table, talking with two elders. Her face was calm again, but her eyes caught Mark and stayed on him. Mark walked over slowly, stopping a few feet away. "Commander," he said, giving a respectful nod. She looked at him for a moment before speaking. "Ambassador," Mark cleared his throat. "I believe I made a mistake earlier today. On Earth, when we open a door for someone, it is a sign of respect, not submission." Tira's eyes narrowed slightly. "You stepped aside." "I did," Mark admitted, "but only to be kind. That is what we do on Earth. It means I welcome you. You are important." Tira looked thoughtful. She didn't respond right away. Then she said quietly, "On Virilia, when one steps aside, it means the other has power over them. It is not kind. It is surrender." Mark smiled, but softly. "Then maybe we can learn from each other. We both meant no harm." She studied his face. After a few long seconds, her shoulders relaxed slightly. "You're strange, human," she said. "But not weak. Thank you," Mark said with a chuckle. She turned away slowly, then paused. "Next time, allow me to open the door." Mark nodded. "Deal." That night, back in his quarters, Mark wrote a report to Earth Command. Day 1 on Varelia. Cultural misunderstanding with Commander Tira. Apparently, doors are serious business. Recommend creating a guide to human politeness for future ambassadors. Mission still on track. No diplomatic disasters yet. Just awkward silence. Learning fast. He hit send. Then he laughed to himself and said quietly, "Tomorrow, I'll let her go first." The next morning on Varelia began like any other. But for Mark, the human ambassador, things were no longer normal. His door-opening gesture the day before had somehow turned into the biggest news. In the capital, what he thought was just a small cultural mistake had now reached planet-wide attention. As Mark walked toward the council dome, heads turned, Varelians nodded. Some even stepped aside as he passed, which was strange. Most Varelians prided themselves on walking tall and never yielding space. Unless absolutely necessary. Inside the dome, Mark noticed something new. On the holographic news screen hanging above the entrance, there was a headline in glowing blue letters: "Human Ambassador offers open submission to Commander Tira." What does it mean? Below the headline, a looped video showed him holding the door for Tira. Her frozen reaction. His calm smile. A dramatic voiceover added phrases like ancient human custom and unexpected diplomatic signal. Mark blinked. Oh no. Inside the council chamber, the buzz didn't die down. The Varelian leaders whispered among themselves. One of them, a wise elder named Soon, called out to Mark as he took his seat. "You are brave," Soon said, tilting his head slowly. "Very brave to show such humility in public." "I wasn't trying to be brave," Mark replied with a forced smile. "I was just trying to be polite." Soon gave a slow blink. Of course, very polite." The conversation ended there. But the looks didn't stop. Later, in the break chamber, Mark sat down with a warm herbal drink. His assistant AI drone, Noma, floated beside him. "I think the situation is getting out of hand," Mark said quietly. "They think I'm trying to play some political game." Noma blinked. Analysis confirms rising social media activity across Varelia. Keywords include Mark bow, human submission, and door of respect. Mark bow? Mark raised an eyebrow. Double quotes, yes. It has become a trending term among younger Varelians. Some are copying the gesture as a new peace symbol. Others believe it is part of a secret human ritual. Mark groaned and leaned back. All of this because of a door. Noma hummed softly. One small action can carry great meaning. When cultures collide. Just then, the door opened. Tira walked in. Mark stood up. "Commander." Tira nodded, keeping her face unreadable. She walked over and looked at him carefully. "You've become famous," she said. "Not on purpose." Mark replied. "There is now a drawing of you on the walls of the youth school," Tira added. "It shows you bowing while holding a door." Mark winced. "I wasn't bowing. I was holding the door." Tira tilted her head. "Too many. It looks the same." There was a pause. "I did not speak against you." She added, "I told the council you meant no insult." "Thank you," Mark said. "But it seems now I've started a movement." Tira looked thoughtful. "Some call it foolish. Some call it peaceful." Mark smiled a little. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." That afternoon, Mark was invited to a student discussion forum at the Varelian Academy of Learning. He was told it would be a simple event, just a few curious minds. But when he arrived, the room was full. Dozens of Varelian students sat quietly, watching him enter. A large screen above them read, "The meaning of the Mark bow. A human ambassador speaks." Mark stared at the sign. "They think I invented it." The teacher, a friendly older Varelian named Lecta, greeted him warmly. "Ambassador Mark, your gesture has inspired deep thinking among our youth. Please, share the truth of your ways." Mark took a breath and stepped up to the speaking platform. "Thank you for having me," he began. I want to explain something clearly. On Earth, we hold doors for each other not to show weakness, but to show respect, not because someone is stronger but because they are important, or sometimes just because we want to be kind. The students listened closely. He continued, kindness doesn't mean surrender. We humans don't see respect as something you lose when you share it. We believe strength isn't about standing tall alone, it's about helping others stand with you. The room was silent for a long moment. Then a small Varelian girl in the front row raised her hand. Will you show us how to do it properly? Mark smiled and nodded. He walked over to the classroom door, opened it gently, and stepped aside. Like this? That's all. It's not about power. It's just a welcome. One by one, the students walked through the door, smiling or nodding in thanks. That evening, back in his quarters, Mark received a message from Earth Command. He opened it quickly. It read, Command note, excellent work. Reports show rising favor toward humans on Varelia. Your cultural approach is gaining attention. Continue peaceful outreach. Mark laughed. Peaceful outreach, through doors. Noma blinked. Perhaps you should write a guidebook. Chapter 1, Mark said, raising his cup of tea. Don't hold the door unless you're ready to start a galactic trend. Mark didn't plan to become a cultural icon. But after the door event and the speech at the academy, the term Mark Bao had spread across Varelia like wildfire. Videos of Varelian youth copying the human gesture appeared on every holo network. Merchants even began selling pins with little door symbols on them. To some Varelians, it was cute. To others, it was a sign of rebellion. To the older generation, it was deeply confusing, and that confusion was growing into tension. Inside the Galactic Unity building, Mark met with the Varelian Cultural Relations team. The chamber was filled with soft blue light and long crystal. Tables, floating tablets hovered above each chair. Tira was present, sitting beside Mark with her arms crossed and her gaze sharp. The lead cultural advisor, a thin Varelian named Velith, stood in front of the group. We must address the situation. Quickly, Velith said, your small act holding a door has now become a symbol. It's being misread. Some see it as a challenge to our customs. Mark sat upright. I didn't mean to change anything. I only meant to be polite. Intentions are not always enough. Velith replied calmly. Tira spoke up next. There are now groups using your gesture to question our social traditions. Teachers, elders, and even council members are arguing. Some believe humans are trying to change Varelia. Mark sighed. I don't want to cause a cultural war. Velith turned toward him. Then perhaps you should help explain your culture. Better, a public forum, a question and answer session? Mark hesitated. Will they listen? Tira looked at him and said quietly, you've already been heard. The question now is what you choose to say next. A few days later, a large public forum was held in the Unity Sphere, a glass-covered dome in the heart of the capital. It was broadcast live across the planet. Hundreds of Varelians filled the seats. Thousands more watched through hologram feeds. On the raised stage stood Mark, Tira, and Noma floating silently beside him. Mark stepped forward to speak. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, he began. I know there has been confusion, so I want to share a little more about human culture. The room was silent, waiting. Humans are not perfect, Mark continued. We come from a world where kindness is seen as strength, not weakness. When we help someone, when we open a door or offer a seat, we're not saying I give up. We're saying, you matter. Some Varelians nodded. Others frowned. Mark held up a small cube. It unfolded into a screen showing images of Earth, people hugging, helping each other during storms, giving food, carrying heavy bags for strangers. This is our way, he said. We help each other, not because we must but because we choose to. A voice shouted from the back. But helping others is dangerous. You make yourself weak. Mark looked toward the voice. Sometimes. Yes, helping others can be risky. But it is also powerful. When humans stand together, we become stronger. Tira stepped forward now. She looked out at the crowd. I once thought the ambassador's action was a mistake. I believed he was surrendering or playing some strange trick. But now, I understand it was something else. She paused, then added, it was trust. A whisper moved through the crowd after the event. The mood in the city shifted. Some still didn't understand, but many were curious. More young Varelians began greeting each other with polite nods and small bows human style. Still, not everyone liked it. That night, in a quiet corner of the city, a group of masked Varelians gathered. They called themselves the Circle of Purity. They believed alien cultures, including humans, were polluting Varelian tradition. The humans act kind, the leaders said, but they are tricking us. They want to change who we are. They must be stopped, another voice said. And so, a plan was made. The next morning, Mark received an official invitation from the Varelian Council. Commander Tira, he said, holding the message, they want me to take part in a formal cultural test. Tira raised an eyebrow. That is unusual. It's called a strength exchange trial, Mark explained. Apparently, it's meant to prove whether an ambassador understands local customs or is trying to undermine them. Tira frowned. These trials are usually for warriors or leaders accused of dishonor. This is political. Mark looked at her. Can I refuse? You can, Tira replied. But refusing would make you look guilty, like you have something to hide. Mark nodded slowly. Then I guess I have to face. The next day, the city of Zerl, capital of Varelia, was buzzing with news. The human ambassador, Mark, had accepted the invitation to take part in the strength exchange trial, a traditional Varelian event used to test honor, truth, and power. Normally, only warriors or leaders faced such a test. But now, an alien, a human, was walking into it. Everyone wanted to see what he would do. Mark stood in front of the round trial arena. The ground was marked with glowing white lines, and the seats around it were already full. Varelians from every corner of the city had come to watch. His assistant drone, Noma, hovered beside him. Are you ready? Noma asked softly. No, Mark said honestly, but I'm going to do it anyway. Across the arena stood 3 Varelian trial masters, dressed in long robes of blue and silver. One of them stepped forward. Mark of Earth, he called. You have entered our tradition. You have been challenged to prove your intentions. Do you accept the rules? Mark nodded. I do. Then choose your test, strength of body, or strength of mind. Mark didn't even hesitate. Mind. The crowd gasped. Tira sat in the front row, watching carefully. She knew the risks. Choosing mind meant facing a series of logic puzzles, strategy questions, and cultural traps. Failing them would make Mark look weak, maybe even dishonest. But Mark had something else. He was human. And humans were full of surprises. The first challenge was called the Box of Shadows. A small black cube was placed on the table before Mark. The trial master spoke. This cube contains an object. It may be sharp, heavy, or soft. You may not open it. You may only ask 5 questions. Then you must decide what's inside. Mark leaned forward, thinking. He smiled. Question 1. Does it make a sound when it moves? The cube was gently shaken. It made a soft clink. Question 2. Is it made of metal? Yes. Question 3. Can it be used as a tool? Yes. Mark rubbed his chin. Question 4. Is it sharp? No. Last question, Mark said. Is it something Varelians use often? Yes. Mark looked at the crowd. Then he looked at the trial master. My answer. It's a door bolt key used in traditional homes. The trial master opened the box slowly and held up the exact item. The crowd cheered. Even the trial master looked impressed. The second challenge was a test of strategy. Mark stood at a table with 3 holo maps of imaginary alien colonies. Each colony had a problem, food shortage, poor defenses, or power failure he had to solve. All 3 using only 5 total moves. He studied the maps carefully. First, he noticed the colony with poor defenses was near the food-rich one. So, he used Move 1, send soldiers to protect both. Then, Move 2, share food from the rich colony to the hungry one. Move 3, combine engineers from both to build new generators. Move 4, train local workers to manage resources. Move 5, open trade between all 3. Mark stepped Back at done. The judges looked at each other, then nodded. One said, "Your plan avoids war, saves lives, and builds peace." Another said, "Human thinking is strange, but clever." The third and final test was the hardest. The cultural choice. Mark was shown to short clips. In one, a Varelian opened a door for a respected elder. In the other, a human did the same for a stranger. Then he was asked, which action shows greater respect? Mark paused. He knew what they expected, the Varelian action, because their culture valued rank and honor. But he spoke honestly. "I choose the human one." Mark said, "Because showing kindness to a stranger without reason or reward is the deepest form of respect." The crowd went silent. Even the trial masters were quiet. Then the oldest master stood. "Your words show strength not just of mind, but of heart." He raised a silver stick into the air. "This trial is past." Cheers erupted in the arena. Mark stood still, surprised and relieved. Tira approached him, calm as always, but there was a flicker of pride in her eyes. "You did it," she said. "I think I just passed an alien IQ test," Mark replied. Wiping sweat from his forehead. She nodded. "You didn't fight, you didn't shout, but you still won. That is very human and very rare here." They walked out of the arena together. This time, no one stared in confusion. No one whispered in fear. Instead, Varelians nodded to him. Some even stepped slightly aside as a sign of welcome. That night, Mark sat by the window in his room, watching the twin moons rise over Varelia. Noma floated nearby. "You handled the trial well," the drone said. Mark smiled. "It wasn't about being clever. It was about being honest." "Honesty," Noma replied, "is often harder than logic." Mark looked out at the stars. "Maybe we can't make everyone understand Earth, but if we show them who we really are, maybe that's enough." And for the first time since he'd arrived, Mark felt like Varelia was starting to feel a little like home. 2 days after the trial, the city of Zurl felt calmer. The news of Mark's peaceful victory in the strength exchange trial had spread across Varelia. Many citizens, especially the younger ones, started to understand human customs a little more. They watched Earth videos, practiced Mark bow greetings, and shared kindness openly. But peace does not last forever. Far from the capital, in the cold desert region of Nirak, a secret group was moving in the shadows. They called themselves the Circle of Purity. Their goal was simple: protect the true Varelian culture by removing all outsiders, starting with humans. Inside a small underground base, a tall Varelian named Thark stood before a glowing map of Zurl. His sharp eyes burned with anger. "They laugh at us now," Thark growled. "They bow, they smile. They talk about unity, all because of one soft human." A younger follower spoke nervously. "But Commander Tira supports him, and the council, too." "Then they are blind," Thark replied coldly. "If our leaders won't protect our values, we will." He pressed a button. A red light appeared over the Unity Station, a joint facility operated by humans and Varelians. It stored food, water, and emergency supplies for 3 nearby cities. "We hit the station," Thark said. "Show them that humans are weak, that kindness fails in the face of fire." That same night, Mark was walking through the garden near the council hall. The sky above was deep purple, and 2 moons glowed in the sky. Tira walked beside him, quiet, but thoughtful. "I heard," she said, "your face is now printed on school books." "There's a chapter called Ambassador of Respect," Mark laughed. "I'm still surprised they didn't run me off the planet." Tira glanced at him. "You came as a guest, but you stay with truth. That earns respect here." Just then, her wrist device beeped. She tapped it once, and a small blue screen appeared. Her expression changed instantly, her eyes sharp, her mouth tight. "What is it?" Mark asked. Tira spoke fast. "Unity Station is under attack. It holds human supplies and Varelian medicine." "Who's attacking?" "We don't know yet," she said. "But I have to go." Mark stepped forward. "I'm going with you." Tira frowned. "It's dangerous." "I know," Mark said. "But they're attacking something built by both our people. I can't stay here and watch." Tira looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Within minutes, they boarded a fast hovercraft, flying low over the silver mountains. Inside the ship, soldiers prepared their gear. Tira gave orders calmly, while Mark checked a small backpack mostly filled with tools, a comm device, and a first aid kit. He wasn't a soldier, but he was still part of this world now. As they neared the station, the sky turned red. Smoke was rising. The outer fence had been destroyed. The ship landed fast. Tira and her team moved in formation, while Mark followed closely, staying behind cover. Inside the station, lights flickered. Crates were broken, water tanks leaking. 2 injured workers sat against a wall, and 1 human technician shouted for help. Mark rushed forward. He dropped beside the human worker, a young man with a burned hand. "You okay? We tried to stop them," the man gasped. "They were fast, took control of the systems, locked others inside the control room." Mark nodded. "Stay still. I'll get help." He turned to Tira. "They've sealed the main controls. Maybe I can get them open." Tira nodded. "Do it. I'll hold the hall." Mark moved fast through the corridors, using his small toolkit to reach the control door. Sparks flew from a damaged panel. He took a deep breath. "Okay, Mark," he muttered. "This is just like fixing the garden gate, but with lasers and no mistakes." He worked quickly, hands steady. Behind him, he could hear blaster fire. Tira was keeping the attackers back. 1 wire sparked, then clicked. The control room door slid open. 4 workers rushed out, to Varelian and to human. They were safe now. Mark stepped backhand. Just then, an explosion hit the hallway behind. He fell hard. The shock shook the floor. Smoke filled the air. He heard Tira shout, "Mark!" Pain shot through his arm. A sharp metal piece had cut him, but he was still breathing. Then he saw them, the attackers. Varelians in dark armor, masked, moving like shadows. One of them raised a blaster toward him. But before the shot fired, Tira jumped between them, shield raised. The blast hit her arm. She dropped to 1 knee but didn't fall. She growled and struck the attacker with her staff, knocking him down. Mark crawled forward, pulling her behind a crate. "You're hit. It's not deep," she said, breathing hard. "I've had worse." More footsteps echoed. But now, more Varelian peace guards arrived, alerted by Mark's emergency signal earlier. Within minutes, the attackers were surrounded. They dropped their weapons. The fight was over. Back at the capital, Mark sat beside Tira in the healing center. Her arm was bandaged, but she was already back to her usual calm self. "You saved me," Mark said softly. "I protected my teammate." Tira replied. He smiled. "That's very human of you." She smirked slightly. "Or maybe you're becoming Varelian." They both laughed. A message flashed on the wall screen. "Unity Station attacked. Human and Varelian teamwork stops." Terra Group Ambassador Mark and Commander Tira praised for bravery. Mark looked at the screen, then at Tira. "Enemies at the gate," he said. "But they didn't get through." Tira nodded. "Not when we stand together." The sun rose over the glowing towers of Zerl, casting long shadows across the white stone streets. Varelians moved quietly through the city, their minds still full of the shocking news. Unity Station attacked. Human and Varelian team saved lives together after the surprise attack. Many citizens felt afraid, but others felt something new. Hope. They saw how Mark, the human ambassador, didn't run from danger. He stayed. He helped. He protected others, even when he was scared. And he wasn't alone. Commander Tira, one of their own, had stood beside him, wounded, yes, but unbroken. Now, their story was being told everywhere. Inside the medical center, Mark sat beside Tira's bed. She rested with her arm in a sling, her sharp eyes watching him as he poured her a warm herbal drink. "You could rest too," she said. Mark shook his head. "Can't. Too many meetings. Too many questions." Tira raised an eyebrow. "Still trying to explain doors." Mark chuckled. "Now I have to explain why I didn't run when the station was attacked." Tira leaned back against the pillow. "And what will you say?" "I'll tell them the truth," Mark replied. "That I stayed because people needed help. Not because of orders. Not because of pride. Just because it was right. Tira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That is a lesson many here still don't understand." Later that day, Mark stood in front of a large crowd in the Grand Hall of Voices. He had been invited by the council to speak. Varelians filled the room, elders, soldiers, students, workers. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with respect, a few still with doubt. Mark took a breath. "When I first came to Varelia," he said, "I held a door open for someone, and the whole planet became confused." A soft chuckle passed through the crowd. "But I learned something important that day. I learned that meaning is not the same everywhere. On Earth, holding a door means respect. Here, it meant submission. I didn't know that, but I was willing to learn." He paused, then continued. "Then came the test, the strength exchange trial. And again, I chose a path that was strange to you, a path of logic and peace. I didn't win by fighting. I won by sharing." Some heads nodded slowly. "And then, when Unity Station was attacked, I didn't run. I stayed, not because I had to, but because someone needed help. I stood with Tira, not as a warrior, but as a friend." He looked across the room, his voice steady. "That is what it means to be human. Not perfect, not always strong, but always trying to do the right thing." The hall was silent. Then one elder stood and clapped slowly. Then another. Soon, the hall filled with applause, not wild, but honest and respectful. After the speech, a young Varelian girl approached Mark. She looked no older than 10. Her voice was small. "Ambassador Mark," she said, "can I ask a question?" "Of course." He replied with a smile. "Do humans help people they don't know, even if no one is watching?" Mark knelt down beside her. "Yes, because kindness isn't something we do to look good. It's something we do because it matters." The girl smiled shyly and held out a small card. It had a drawing, a human and a Varelian standing together, holding open a door. "I made this," she said, "for you and Commander Tira." Mark took the card gently. "Thank you. It's beautiful." That evening, Tira stood on a balcony, watching the sky. The city lights shimmered like stars. Mark joined her. "You were right," he said. "Sometimes people don't need speeches. They just need to see something real." Tira didn't respond right away. Then she said, "You showed them that strength is not always power. Sometimes it's care, quiet actions, gentle choices." Mark looked at her. "And you showed them that Varelians can protect more than borders. They can protect peace too." Tira turned to him, thoughtful. "In our history," she said, "heroes are always strong, fast, and fearless. But maybe it's time to write new stories." Mark smiled. "On Earth, we say true strength is helping others when no one expects it." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe your kind of strength is what we need now." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the twin moons rise above the hills. Then Tira spoke again. "You know," she said, "back when you first held that door for me, I almost reported you for improper action." Mark laughed. "I know, and I almost packed my bags. But you stayed," she said. "And now, many are starting to open doors, not because they have to, but because they choose to." Mark looked at her. "Kindness spreads," he said simply. "Sometimes. Slowly, but it does." The next morning, a new sign was placed outside the council building. It showed two hands, one human, one Varelian, reaching toward a shared door. Under it, words were written in both languages. "Respect is not weakness. Kindness is not surrender. Welcome is the strongest bridge." And so, slowly but surely, a lesson in humanity began to grow roots in the heart of Varelia. Not through orders, not through war, but through a simple act of holding a door. The Grand Hall of Unity was filled with people. Varelians in sharp robes stood beside humans in clean suits. Long banners hung from the ceiling, showing both planets' flags crossed together. The moment was important. This was the first time Earth and Varelia would sign a shared peace and exchange treaty. Ambassador Mark stood to the side of the stage, straightening his jacket. His heart beat fast, but not from nerves. He felt proud of how far both species had come. Beside him stood Commander Tira, wearing silver armor polished until it shined. Her arm had healed, but she now wore a blue band around her wrist gifted to her by human children who saw her as a hero. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly. Mark looked at her, more than ever. A council speaker walked to the center of the hall and lifted a ceremonial tablet. "Today," the speaker announced, "we welcome a new path. A path where strength is shared and peace is chosen, not forced. Earth and Varelia now begin a future as equals." Soft clapping filled the hall. But something else waited, a moment that would speak louder than words. Mark stepped forward. Tira stepped beside him. In front of them was a large ceremonial door, round, golden, standing alone in the center of the room. It had no walls, no building behind it, just the door. It was a symbol, created by both cultures together. The plan was simple. Both leaders would walk to the door. One would open it for the other. The gesture would show respect, trust, and unity. But neither had decided who would do it. Mark turned to Tira. "After all this time," he said with a smile, "want me to hold the door again?" Tira tilted her head. "And make me freeze again?" They both laughed softly. The audience smiled, watching them closely. Tira stepped forward. "Let me try this time." Mark nodded and stood still. Tira reached out, placed her hand on the golden handle, and opened the door for him. Mark bowed his head slightly and walked through. Then he turned and held the other side open for her. Tira stepped through, calm and proud. The audience stood. Applause thundered across the hall. The moment was captured on 100 screens. It was shared live across Earth and Varelia, and it became a moment that would be remembered for generations. After the ceremony, Mark and Tira sat on a quiet balcony, sipping warm drinks. The stars above Varelia twinkled like lanterns. "You didn't freeze this time," Mark teased. Tira smiled. "I almost did. But then I remembered what that door meant now. Not just to us, but to everyone." Mark nodded. "It's funny, isn't it? A simple act, a door, and it changed two worlds." "It wasn't just the door," Tira said. "It was what came after. The lessons, the choices, the trust." Mark looked thoughtful. "Do you think it'll last?" Tira looked at the sky. "If we keep holding doors for each other, not just with hands, but with hearts, then yes, it will last." Back in the city streets, something special was happening. Children, both human and Varelian, played together. Some of them practiced the Mark bow, pretending to hold doors open and say after you. Shops painted signs, "Kindness is strength. Unity through respect." Even the military training schools added new classes. Human cultural understanding and peace through cooperation. What had started as a mistake had become a movement. Later that week, Mark received a message from Earth. "You've been requested to give talks on 10 planets next cycle. You're now known across 3 sectors as the door holder." He chuckled. Tira read the message and smirked. "You're famous now. Better than being the guy who almost caused an interplanetary fight," Mark said. They both laughed again. A few days later, Mark was packing for his return trip to Earth. His mission was complete, but the connection between both worlds would continue. There would be more ambassadors, more exchange visits, more shared missions. Tira entered the room. "Leaving already?" she asked. "For now," Mark replied. "But I'll be back. There's still so much to learn." Tira handed him a small box. "Open it when you get home." He raised an eyebrow but took it. Then, before he left, he turned to her. "Next time we meet," he said, "you hold the door again." Tira smiled. "It will be my honor." 6 months later, Earth at a school in the city of New Hope. Children sat in a circle while Varelian guests spoke to them about her planet. It was Tira. She opened the small box she had given to Mark, now placed in a display case at the school. Inside was a tiny golden replica of the ceremonial door. Above it were the words, "Let this be the door we always choose together." And underneath, inspired by the first door holder, Ambassador Mark. As the children clapped, one small girl raised her hand. "Commander Tira, why did you open the door for Mark that day?" Tira smiled gently. "Because I finally understood." She said that holding a door is not giving up strength. It's giving respect. It's saying, I see you. I honor you. Let's walk through together. The children nodded, wide-eyed and smiling.